Welcome to Martinsville, Virginia, where the weather is beautiful. This is the kind of day you want to have every day for race day. Temps are going to the high 60s. Not a cloud in the sky. A little chilly right now, but that's going to improve as the day goes on. And we have an awful lot for you on Speed today, beginning with this, the penultimate practice for the Sprint Cup cars. Final practice to follow, and then, like I say, big day on Speed. We'll tell you about that in a second. But right now, with this track washed clean and no chance to qualify, well, you got, what, 2 hours here, hour and 40 minutes to get it all done.
Well, one thing I always liked about this racetrack, it never changes. The setup that I've run here for years, you can just about throw in these cars and go out and make it work. And the tire is a little bit different, got a little bit more grip. Other than that, I guarantee you the setup that the 48 used here last year is probably in his car right now. Same way with most everybody in the field.
Well, Ryan Newman hated we didn't get to qualify. He was fastest in practice. Kevin Harvick's probably pretty pleased because he ends up there on the front row.
Yeah, but I tell you, this day is pretty important because qualifying is so important here. A lot of the teams really focused in that hour and a half yesterday on getting qualifying from a standpoint of where you start the race and that every important pit selection, which Kevin Harvick and that 29 group will get that #1 pit selection. So because so much focus was put on qualifying, this is the two practices that you have to get ready to race. And you can run a lot of laps in these two practices. I'm sure there'll be a lot of scrambling, a lot of changes in this first practice. And as we like to say, just start fine-tuning in that final practice session.
All right, let's have a look at today's big day on Speed, beginning with Sprint Cup practice, round 1, and then final practice coming up a little later. Then at 1:30 Eastern Time, we'll have the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race. Tomorrow, NASCAR Race Day gets your motor running at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And then the Sprint Cup race is on Fox. Our coverage begins at noon. Wrap it all up with NASCAR Victory Lane at 8 p.m. tomorrow evening. All weather permitting. Well, whether or not, let's go down to the garage area and Steve Burns.
Hey, Mike, Count Greg Biffle is one of those guys in the camp who's okay with the fact that qualifying got rained out. In 14 starts here, he has just one top 10 finish. Greg said before he got in the race car that his problem is he was turning too well in the center, working on forward bite in that 16 car. Matt Yoakum.
Steve, what a busy weekend for Kevin Harvick. Due to his early season performance, Mike, Darrell, and Larry Mack mentioned that he's got a great pit stall and great starting spot, not only for tomorrow's Cup race, but also the Truck Series race later on today. For Harvick, the goal of this session, just to back up his race setup that he ran on Friday and felt was very stout. He was 16th fastest, but said the car really came in after only a few laps. They're hoping that it backs up because he thinks he's got a great shot at doing something he's never done here at Martinsville, and that's score a top 5 finish, possibly a Sprint Cup win.
Well, you know, to be honest with you, that #1 pit selection on the exit of pit road over in turn 2, I read some driver quotes last night and this morning. They all agreed. It's almost like probably buying 2 seconds on your pit stop because you only have to move just a short distance to win the battle off pit road, and you're never worried about being blocked in on a very tight pit road like here.
Oh, Larry.
How about that shot?
Oh, Larry.
This is from Martin Truex's Napa Toyota looking forward from the bumper cab.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be good in the race tomorrow.
That curbing is about 4 inches high. Boy, did you see Harvick just about pick the left front off the ground as he accelerated?
Yeah, you do that here. That's not uncommon. Again, you have so much power. And Larry, one thing I can see is that little strip they added to the bottom of the quarter panel, one of the aero adjustments that have been made to the car since they went to the spoiler. You can see it right there, that addition, and that just gives the car a little more side force. Yeah, this is going to be a great shot. And to my point about things don't change that much, remember we were talking this morning about not getting to qualify and how the guys in the top 12 in practice were almost mirrored the top 12 in practice here last year. And that's just kind of the way this place goes. Once you get it figured out, setup wise and how to drive it, it never changes really. Well, you see Mark clip the curve there and cause him to get a little bit loose getting off.
I'll tell you what, I know we're in race trim. These guys are running some pretty fast laps this morning. I mean, Mark Martin is the fastest in that 5 car to 1972. That's close to what we were seeing yesterday as guys were getting ready to qualify without the sun on the racetrack.
Yeah, and I'll say this again. There's not a lot of difference between a qualifying setup here and a race setup. you're either getting around here good or you're not. And so it's not surprising. But also, Larry, the other thing is when the track is clean like it is right now, you can run some fast laps. No rubber built up yet. Track's just pretty abrasive, and you can go quick right now.
Second fastest, Juan Pablo Montoya. He will start 22nd based on his current position in the Sprint Cup points.
I think he's definitely one of the guys that hated to see that qualifying get scratched, because I think he was going to have a great qualifying run.
Another thing too is you don't want to chase this racetrack right now. Let's see, got 2 practice sessions. Let's run this first one before we get our car, start changing things about our race car, because as it rubbers up, it will change.
We had a great conversation with the senior level of NASCAR officials this morning, and 2 of the things that caught up pertain to this qualifying. The first, why can't we qualify on Saturday? The way the schedule is put together, it is just too tight on Saturday to re-inspect cars, or even if you just line the cars up all inspected, to run qualifying, then turn everything over for 2 rounds of practice, and then still get the truck race in on time. So we can't qualify Saturday morning. So then we talked about, well, why can't you just line them up by practice speeds? And the reason is a pretty simple one. Practice is not inspected and regulated as closely as qualifying is. And all of that creative engineering that you've read about over the years could just maybe all come into play. So the system is what it is. We're going to start based on points. All things considered, probably the fairest way to do it.
The bottom line, all the race teams, they know that's the procedure.
Right.
It's not an unknown.
First week for everything old is new again. The new rear spoiler on Sprint Cup cars. How about that? One o'clock start time tomorrow. We're on the air at noon. Fast Track to Fame lets America's most unique performers cut loose every week for a chance to become a star. Are you ready to discover NASCAR Nation's next great superstar? Catch Fast Track to Fame Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific, and only on Speed. Jeff Burton is now tied with Mark Martin for fastest in this session.
Something's come over Burton, Larry. I don't know what it is. All of a sudden, he's just out there every week. You know, like in Charlotte, he was the fastest car in the Charlotte test for 2 days. He unloaded here today, or yesterday, quick. Here he is, second quick today. They have really stepped up their qualifying and program and putting some speed in this car.
You know what? We had him on our trackside show last night, and he kind of talked about these first 5 races here. They're sitting 7th in the points. He's completed every lap of competition. He said they're much, much better off than they were a year ago, but they still are looking for just a little something when you figure the fact that he finished a strong top 5 at California, but they're not solidly up in the top 10 week in and week out like they'd like to be. He knows they're better, but they still got a little work to do.
A lot of that difference looks to be those Earnhardt Childress engines, because not only this team, but also Ganassi Racing. Big improvement this year.
But last year, even the Ganassi cars last year with the ECR engines, they were bad fast.
Yeah.
Montoya and Truex last year, the cars were not that great last year apparently for the Childress group, but they've definitely improved everything about their program.
Brian Vickers, who made the chase last year, trying to
really good lap time.
Get back in position, and those are good times. He's 3rd fastest right now.
You know, and they started the season off, Mike, about like they ended 2009, but they finished 7th at Atlanta. Even being involved in that big crash in 3 and 4, they came home 15th at Bristol. And I know at the Charlotte test the other day, they were so happy they actually loaded up a little bit early before that test was over, and here they're 3rd quickest in this practice.
Montoya 4th, Jeff Gordon 5th. 14th right now is Kurt Busch. He is the fastest Dodge in this session. Sam Hornish, another driver who was disappointed qualifying was canceled. Hornish is 17th.
I think Kurt was a little bit worried coming here, though, because this is not one of his favorite tracks. Hadn't had maybe the stellar performance here he has at other places. He was worried about being able to compete with the Denny Hamlins and the Jimmy Johnsons here this weekend. And Larry, they got that smoke thing going on.
Well, let's see. His crew chief is Steve Addington, and Steve Addington came from Joe Gibbs Racing. And what cars have we seen doing that dieseling effect for the last couple of years here?
And it's not brake smoke, and it's not the splitter hitting the track.
But it's all making sense.
It is.
Steve.
Catching up on Mark Martin's progress, he said it was just a little out of the track, a little snug, but in the race it's usually loose, so we should be good. We don't need side bite or forward bite. The car feels good. Mike, what they did, they changed shocks, they came back in, now they're going back to the same shock package they had.
Boy, Steve, it's not often you hear a driver here say, I don't need any more forward bite.
No, that's because that's what you really strive for here, is a car that when you get it turned in the middle of the corner and you can mat it, that it'll come up out of the turn and not spin the rear tires.
So that's a great sign. Jeff Gordon is 5th quickest in this session, 1976.
I think one thing, the tire is a little bit different this time. And I think this particular tire, one of the reasons we're a little quicker, I believe, lap time wise, is it's got a little more grip than what we've had here in the past.
You know, the one thing that's missing for that graphic right there, how about the fact that in those 34 races, he has led 2,796 laps at this half-mile racetrack.
I asked him last night we went down the list of accomplishments that he has here at this particular track, and I said, there are about 20 things. I said, pick me out one that stands out that you're really proud of. It was his average finish.
6.7.
Yeah, it's right around 6th place.
That's really high.
In 34 races.
And he only has, what, 4 or 5 races without a top 10 finish here.
I think he's finished on the lead. Yeah, lead lap 27 times, I think.
Wow. Jamie Mack is in the top 10. So that's both Chip Ganassi cars right now in the top 10. Montoya 4th and Jamie Mack 9th.
That's the thing that makes, I mean, that's an impressive record, right? But that's what makes Jimmy Johnson so much more impressive. If he keeps going at the pace he's going, he will take Jeff Gordon's record and say, that's pretty good, Jeff, but look what I've done.
You know, nobody knows this better than Darrell Waltrip about how to get around this place with the number of wins he's had here. But when I look at our top 10 or 12, what jumps out at me, it's guys that's had a lot of success road racing. Mark Martin, Montoya, Gordon, Hamlin, Stewart, McMurray, Ambrose, Allmendinger. Even though it's an oval, a lot of road course characteristics.
Remember what I told you. The driver's responsibility is to get this car down in the corner, and it doesn't mean, and you got to get in there with some, you know, with finesse, and that's what you do on a road course. These guys know to brake early. They're good left foot brakers, and I guarantee you, if they could shift gears, they'd go quicker yet.
Driver gets it in the corner, crew chief gets it off.
Let's get to Matt Yoakum.
Mike, Jeff Burton coming off a 10th at Bristol. Burton telling his team after the last change they made, it definitely has helped his race car turn a lot. He really needs, though, and a lot of other drivers are already starting to complain about, needs more rear grip, especially later in a run. They made a change. He's gone back at it. He's on the 3rd lap of this run. We'll see if it improves even more.
20.05 on his last lap. That's about 0.3 off of his best single lap, but Jeff Burton does have the best 5 consecutive laps of anybody in the first 15 minutes of this practice.
So when I look at who's favorites in tomorrow's race, I mean, I would think, you know, Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon are 2 guys you're going to watch, but Jimmy Johnson's got a huge advantage already over Jeff because Jimmy's 3rd out of here on pit road. Right. Jeff's going to be around here in 11th spot somewhere.
Kyle Busch coming into the picture is 25th now in this practice.
Been watching the 18, and the car just the first time out, it wasn't very good. They've been working on it.
Somebody else who's not too happy is Jeff Gordon. Steve?
No, he's not, Mike. In fact, Steve Letarte, prior to pulling in the garage area, he said in 1 and 2, the car is so-so. In 3 and 4, it's undrivable. When I release the brake, it's tough to drive. They've changed front shocks, and they've also moved some weight around on the left side of that race car. He's heading out right now.
Well, there's no question, regardless of what the stopwatch shows, Jeff Gordon knows what he's looking for. And Darrell, you know it. Yeah, it's about the stopwatch everywhere we go, but a lot like a road course, if that driver tells you I'm comfortable and I can drive this thing for 500 laps, that's almost outweighs the stopwatch.
Yeah, and moving that weight around a little bit you're trying to find the right balance between what the car is going to feel like full of fuel and what's his car going to feel like when the fuel load starts to burn off, because as the rear of the car gets lighter into a fuel run, that's when you start having a tendency to spin the tires up off the corner. So you want enough nose weight to make it turn, but you got to keep a lot of rear weight in the car too to make it get that bite up off the corner.
Now you're looking back from Denny Hamlin, who is 7th in this practice session. Kurt Busch closing in, and Jeff Gordon. Beautiful, bright, sunny day here in Martinsville, unlike yesterday, and we're not too sure about tomorrow late in the afternoon.
Yeah, the early start time may work in our favor, but you know, we're riding with Denny Hamlin right now, and even though he's going to start deep in the field, we know this is another guy that you're going to have to contend with. He finished 2nd here a year ago to Jimmy Johnson, won here in the fall. In fact, he has 4 consecutive top 5 finishes. Talking about Denny Hamlin, which is Kyle Busch's teammate.
And the 2 cars crew chief used to be the crew chief on the car here that's smoking, right? Like the 2 is? That's right, isn't it?
You've got mail.
Who is now?
Yes,
Addington.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on the 2 car. This car
used to be the crew
this
chief
car's
on this one.
got the same problem. It's smoking like the 2 car is.
And you know, I don't want to get complicated, but with what I've investigated, what's going on here, and I have no idea how they're doing it. It's almost like what a Jake brake does, is when you roll out of the throttle, it de-accelerates the car fast, which obviously makes it easier on the brakes because you're not having to use as much brake, because you can only run so low of a gear here, a 650.
So you're running some sort of compression braking. That's interesting.
But what they're doing is perfectly legal. I don't know what it is, because obviously NASCAR can see the same things that we're seeing, and you better believe that they've looked into it. But it's amazing how now it's transferred over to the 2 car.
Monkey see, monkey do. Eventually.
Well, you know, good ideas move around the garage kind of like good crew chiefs do.
And I'm sure a lot of guys are just like Larry and I. How are they doing that?
We need to put our best man on that. Where is Hammond? He doesn't have nothing to do today.
Well, you know, first it's an innovation, then it becomes commonplace, and pretty soon it's a rule.
I saw Hammond up on the hill over there with some goats, and he had a staff in his hand, so I don't know what he's doing.
Sprint brings you an inside look at what's happening now inside the Sprint Cup Series. Top speed, Mark Martin and Jeff Burton going around here at 96.0 miles per hour. For more, check out NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile at sprint.com/speed.
Well, when you think about averaging 96 miles an hour around here, so you got to be doing at least, what, 130 down the straightaway?
I would say at least.
Yeah.
Maybe a little faster even.
Into a just a 90-degree turn.
See A.J. Allmendinger there in the 43 car. He's 11th quickest in this practice. He's run a total of 25 laps. I think another one of those guys that would love to have gotten an opportunity to qualify, because he was well in the top 10. And we did get that whole hour and a half of practice in yesterday, but when the truck started practicing shortly after that's when the rains moved in.
And there's another road course ace who's running well here. Now, right at the end of yesterday's practice came this incident between Travis Kvapil and Tony Stewart. And it kind of boiled over a little bit into the garage area, and then cooler heads prevailed. Matt?
Well, Mike, that was yesterday. And you know the old saying, tone is always set by when the driver climbs in the race car, and you can always tell how the practice is going to go. And when Tony Stewart climbed in, he keyed the mic and apologized to his team for losing his cool yesterday during that practice incident. And basically, you know, the team had to do some cosmetic repair work to that right front. The car was okay. Stewart's car fast so far in practice, and the owner driver liking what he's seeing so far. But they are going to make a spring change already completed in the rear of the car, because he needs a little more rear grip later in the run.
Well, let's explain what provoked that yesterday. The drivers line up to make mock qualifying runs. It's a gentleman's agreement that you wait your turn and you go. Travis pulled out from behind Tony, pulled out a line, went on the track in front of him. Tony came to go, and he's trying to get his good hot lap. There's Travis in his way. So Tony was showing him that he didn't appreciate Travis jumping out of line and messing up his qualifying lap.
And then in Travis's defense, the clock was ticking. That practice was just about to come to a close, so Travis, like everyone else, was trying their best to get out there to get one more run in.
Unfortunately, like so many other things in this sport, we're not all on the same agenda. You know, if we were, it'd be a little easier for everybody.
You know, Darrell, you mentioned earlier the quarter panel extensions that are lower behind the rear tires. Let's take a look at another thing that's going on with this rear spoiler project. You see right here, you've got the back window fin. We've had that forever. It's 2.5 inches tall. But if you notice right here, and I know it's black, we have this deck fin. And if you go back to Daytona, we ran that deck fin there as well. Now here's what NASCAR has done with this rear spoiler. The first 2 races, which is here at Martinsville and a couple of weeks at Phoenix, that deck fin right there is pretty much optional. You can run it, you don't have to run it. This has to be on there at 2.5 inches, but starting at Texas, the first 1.5 mile track, this now will have to be 3.5 inches, and this will have to be on there at 3.5 inches. But what that deck fin does, it creates side force. You can see it on Greg Biffle's car right there. Because as I walk through the garage area, I probably see more of those deck fins than not. Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon are not running them just to try to keep weight off the deck lid. But one of the things that we lost, you can see there on the deck lid of the Lowe's car, it's not there, is when they took the wing of the away and they took the end plates and went to the spoiler. Just downforce wise, it put total downforce in the car, but more on the front than it did the rear. And I know that sounds backwards, but that's the way that rear spoiler works. So what those quarter panel extensions that Darrell explained and what that deck lid fin does, it gives it back some of the side force that the end plates took away that were on the wing.
Good change. Now let's work on the loose bud.
Plus, I think, Larry, I understood him to say that it also helps air build up, and it makes the roof flaps more effective.
That was the reason we ran it at Daytona. There's no question some of the things they did after the Ryan Newman wreck at Talladega last fall, that just on the left side, it hurts the roof flaps if you put it on the right side, but on the left side, it definitely helps air going to the roof flaps, because NASCAR has not rolled over and said, oh, we're going back to the rear spoiler, we'll never have a car fly again. They know we've had cars fly with the rear spoiler, probably not as much as we've had with this rear wing.
Brian Vickers, third in this session. Let's check with Steve.
Like you can imagine, he is pretty happy with his race car, and what they're working on blowers to the brakes. And Kyle Petty said yesterday they've got about $40,000 worth of brakes on these cars here at Martinsville. Again, they're trying to see how much air they need to get to the brakes. He's on about a 12 to 15 lap run here.
Well, I've been out of the business for about 10 years as a crew chief, but I don't know that you can ever get too much air to the brakes here at Martinsville. This was what we always called a no-tape race. Pull all the tape off the front end, let all the air flow to the radiator and to the brakes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You know, here, when you get in traffic and you're running right behind another car, you lose a lot of the effectiveness of just the air going into the ducts. So you've got to put fans on there so that when you're racing hard behind somebody, you still got some cooling for the brakes.
No change to the top 5. We are 30 minutes into this session. Any fan that recycles a mobile phone during the Samsung Mobile 500 Race Week, that's April 15th to 18th at Texas Motor Speedway, will get a limited edition 3D collector pin and become eligible to win one of 3 unique prizes. Be Grand Marshal for the race, ride in the official pace car, or attend the trophy presentation. For more information, go to texasmotorspeedway.com. Regan Smith 37th with a lap of 1998. And Marcus Ambrose 10th. His fastest lap 1981.
Had a great car last week. Just had speeding penalty and got him in trouble a couple of times, and then he ended up in a wreck. But he had an easily top 10 car last week.
Yeah, he's going to start mighty deep in the field. He's going to start back in the 31st position, considering the troubles he had at Bristol in the first 2 races of the year.
Matt Kenseth is 19th quickest in this session, but Kenseth will start outside pole. He's only 1 point out of the Sprint Cup lead.
He probably would be in the same category as Harvick. Very relieved that the rains moved in before qualifying. I think Matt would have qualified decent. I'm not sure he'd have sat on the outside of the front row, though.
No, but I'm thinking probably he and Harvick both are saying, where's Jimmy Johnson starting? Right behind us. And how long will it be before he smokes us? Probably a couple of laps.
Matt has never qualified in the top 10 here. His average start at Martinsville, 24th. Sam Hornish, 18th on the board. Another driver who had a good practice run and I think was probably hopeful of getting a chance to qualify.
Getting up on that curve, doesn't hurt anything. These curbs are now what I call soft curbs. They've rounded them off. They used to be just like a regular curb at, on the side of a street, just straight up, squared off. But they came in when they redid the track, and like they put up soft walls, well, they put up soft curbs to go with them.
I remember when they changed that because the curbs were 4 inches high and the modifieds had 3 inches of ground clearance.
Yeah.
So they'd keep getting hung on the curb, and you'd have to lift them off to restart the race.
Oh, yeah.
There's been a few Cup cars get hung on.
I got hung on it one time.
Yep. At band camp?
Yeah.
That was a lot closer to what you see him do right there.
Oh, he's looking for the line. The old magic line. The thing about the line is right where Casey Kane is running. What he's trying to do is just stay right on that curb in and off the corner. But you got to be able to carry speed. I mean, you can slow down and run that nice, pretty line around the inside of the racetrack like that right there. But you got to be able to get back in the throttle and accelerate when you're doing that.
Mike, I told the story yesterday in that practice session. There's 3 major components about this big 3,500-pound race car. And that's getting 3,500 pounds in the corner and get it slowed down, get it stopped. Get it to rotate and turn right there, boom, through the middle of the corner, and then get not only that 3,500 pounds, but over 800 horsepower hooked off. And this racetrack hates all 3 of those components, I promise you.
And while you're at it, you got to be going pretty fast, too.
Let's get out of Jamie Mack's, Big Mac's garage, it says on the roof. Steve.
Yeah, it sure does, Mike. I tell you what, they are really hustling down here. Jamie pulled in the garage, and he said, I need to be just a little bit tighter. Let's drop the track bar. Crew chief Kevin Mannion said, all right, guys, I want 4 brand new tires, fill it up with gas, make that track bar adjustment, and do it in 2 minutes.
Definitely, they're running out of time on this practice session. Only about 9 or 10 minutes left.
Here's the shot mounted on the left side of the front bumper of Martin Truex's car.
And as you can see, we'll watch him go down the front straightaway here, and you go right in the turn, and you want to get that left side tire. He's up just a little bit off the bottom, but you want to get that left side tire right against, not on the curb, but right against it. You'll see right here, he just gets right down there by it. His car's pushing up a little in the middle of the corner, but just follow that curb. It's pretty easy, really. Just follow the curb.
But what will happen a lot of times when you get against that curve, if you clip it, it will shoot you over into the car beside you, and that's a lot of times how we end up with a big wreck at Martinsville.
Yeah, it is soft, and it doesn't wreck you quite as bad as it used to, but it will shoot you into the car beside you.
Let's check with Matt.
And Greg Biffle back in the garage here. They're trying to beat the clock. Greg Irwin's going to try to make another change on this race car front sway bar change. He's 30th fastest at this juncture. They've completed 25 laps. He says the forward drive off is okay, but you have to make sure you've got the car turned well enough before getting back in the gas.
And that's part of the timing of getting around here, the rhythm of getting around here. If you get in it too quick, front end will just wash right out. So you got to have her turn when you get it. Got to have it pointed in the right direction.
Now, Steve Burns was telling us at commercial break that what the 24 car had decided to do is make some more adjustments, get out there on some stickers, some new fresh tires, which the air pressures would be very low, because Steve told us he is still not very happy with that 24 car.
Yeah, he's pulling over. Anytime somebody comes up behind him, he just pulls over and lets them go right now. That's how uncomfortable he is.
Well, yeah, Darrell, I think always the philosophy here was running with someone, it doesn't do a lot for you other than maybe you can see where he's a little better or maybe you're a little better than him. But as far as running with someone to find out what your car is going to do around other cars, it's kind of a moot point. It almost distracts the driver from really knowing what his car is doing.
Yeah. Plus, you run the risk of what happened yesterday with Tony Stewart. We saw earlier today, Juan Montoya ran down in the corner behind Bobby Labonte, booted him. So you're always running a risk of hurting your car just in practice.
Denny Hamlin, second quickest of the Toyotas. Vickers is third. Hamlin is seventh. His teammates Logano 12th and Kyle Busch 25th.
You know, Mike, this is the first time that we have lost a qualifying session in 2010, and I think we should, iterate. We had 46 cars here. It was the top 35 that got the top 35 slots, and just to show you the value of winning a race in a particular year, what it does for you the next year is the 26 and the 09, they got in by those wins from last year, and then it went to attempts, and the cars that were odd men out were Casey Mears, Terry Cook, and Johnny Sauter.
Mark Martin is the one car here that is still running. He and Denny Hamlin are both running right about on top of their quickest laps of the day. Everybody else has fallen off a bit for one reason or another.
And I think a lot of people like that 24 car maybe zipped in there with just a few minutes to go in this practice and threw some fresh tires on. Darrell, just listening to these engines, we pull the lowest gear we pull anywhere, 650, but you don't get that hanging RPM. But I can't help but remember the last week, Bristol's normally not hard on engines, and we actually had 3 or 4 engine failures last week.
I think what happened last week was the temps were down. It's cool. The track had a lot of grip. They had a new tire, and NASCAR anticipated the cars would run about the same speed as they did the year before. And in fact, the track was faster, the pace was faster, the RPM were higher, and a little harder on the engine.
Now, after everything we've just said, is it just merely coincidence that all 3 Gibbs cars are running nose to tail in this practice?
They might be checking out tape. How much tape can we get away with if the temps are like this tomorrow? Tape on the radiator mostly, not on the brakes.
Couple of minutes left in the first of 2 sessions today. Best 5 consecutive laps. Again, Jeff Burton tops that list. For a fellow who doesn't like his car very much, Jeff Gordon certainly was speedy around there.
Tires. They put 4 tires on it, and that shot him up there a little bit.
Patient here tomorrow is because you look right now, and Mark Martin is the quickest at a 1972. I'm going to go all the way back to Eric Almirola. He's 35th at a 2007. And you don't have quite as wide of a racetrack to work with like we did at Bristol last week, even though they're both half-mile racetracks.
These 2 guys right here, they may be teammates, 18 to 20, but they are having a heck of a race.
And have been for a while.
Quite a while now. Meantime, their teammate that was right in front of them is that black car way ahead of them. Kind of got away from them. I think that the 3 of them are running together. I think what they're saying is Denny's really good. Let's go out and follow him and see where he's beating us at.
I was going to say, when you talked about the tape, I bet the biggest thing is this is a great way for the 3 of them to evaluate how they stack up between each other.
Yeah, and most of the time the crew chiefs are saying, you got the same setups the 11's got. So how come he's beating me so bad then?
And from that in-car, you saw a very good look at all that smoke that the 18 seems to be pushing out from somewhere.
We'd be changing engines back in the day if it was smoking like him. There's something bad wrong with this thing.
See Clint Boyer, the 33 car, he's been up there in the top 10 about this entire practice session. He has run a total of 48 laps. Most laps run. Mark Martin has run 59 laps in that 5 car.
Last year here, Boyer started 3rd, finished 5th. Both personal bests for him at Martinsville.
It's one of those teams that had an engine casualty last week at Bristol. Talked to that group in the garage area yesterday morning. Actually had 1 rod bearing go out. Said all the other bearings looked good. They felt like maybe trash went through it, but just to build a little insurance, they upped the oil pressure just a little bit for this weekend.
Robbie Gordon in the 7.
Whoa, that's off-roading right there.
Yikes.
Not good. Left black marks, though.
Yeah, that won't work for long here.
You heat that right rear up, and you'll be doing that even more.
Probably a little frustration there as Gordon is 38th on the practice chart. Mark Martin and Jeff Burton win practice, with Brian Vickers, Juan Montoya, and Jeff Gordon the top 5.
Look at that, 72 with a 3, 72 with a 3, 74 with a 3, 74 with a 5. Tight.
Yes, sir.
One more round of practice coming up in just a little bit. You'll have that right here on Speed. And then the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race this afternoon.
Well, Jimmy Johnson not way up there on the practice sheet, 16th quickest.
All right, we'll see you in just a little while for final practice for the Sprint Cup Series.